The University Counseling Center is in the Student Health Center. The Student Health Center is in the same area with the radio station as well as the daycare. Along with myself, we have Dr. Bernadette Smith, who is my director, and another counselor. Her name is Dr. Karen Cooper. We provide counseling services and support to all students who are actively enrolled for the semester. That means if you are in school for the spring, we can talk to you. If you are enrolled for the summer, we can talk to you. That being said, sometimes we will have students that will say, well, I'm a TSU student, and even though I'm not in school for the summer, can I still access services? And the answer would be it is tuition driven. So if you are actively enrolled, we can definitely speak with you. That being said, I want to thank you guys for giving me the opportunity to speak to you about the importance of student mental health, especially during these uncertain times that we have, that we're going through. I mean, everybody across the world has been struggling with this pandemic. The way that we used to do things, if you think about it, a year ago, have been abruptly changed. I mean, the way we shop, the way we have dinner with a friend, the way that we attend classes, so many of those things have changed right now. And it's important to focus on your mental health while we're dealing with these uncertain times. So with the restrictions that the government and the health agencies have put on us, there's a lot of research. One survey comes to mind by Active Minds back in April 2020. Just imagine that within 1 month of COVID occurring, Active Minds conducted this survey. And just from 1 month, it was determined that 80% of college students reported having problems with their lives just because they were negatively impacted by COVID-19. So can you imagine that that was 1 month in April 20, now we're in March 2021, I would not be surprised to see that number have increased. So with that, there's so many challenges, right? Disrupted schedules, I mean, trouble maintaining a routine. I mean, we once had, a way of doing things, getting up, getting dressed, eating breakfast, going to school, having lunch, doing things. Now, even though times are changing because of vaccinations and everything, the schedules are still difficult to maintain because there is so much uncertainty. How will the campuses do classes for the summer? How are they going to do them for the fall? How can I put together a schedule that's going to work for me? Another challenge is social distancing. I mean, nobody likes being apart from each other. We're all huggy, lovey people. We like to go to a bunch of events with a bunch of folks, but we're struggling to kind of isolate or stay apart from each other so that we can be safe. And lastly, fitness. If we're staying at home and the gyms were closed for a while, we're not working out as much. We'd love to say that we're going to use Daily Burn and all of those online workout programs, but it really doesn't end up happening. What ends up happening is we sit in and we eat a little bit more, we drink a little bit more, and we don't have that activity that would benefit us during this time. So those are some challenges that the survey found that college students are really dealing with. Some other things that college students are experiencing: stress and anxiety. Just with everything, the uncertainty of everything going on, having to learn to do things differently, maybe having to be at home now in an environment that isn't as conducive to learning or as supportive as it was maybe when you were at school. Depression and sadness. If you imagine everything that we've gone through from the last year, we've actually all suffered a loss. We've lost the normal way of life that we've been doing things, and that grief can support depression and sadness at this time. Also, loneliness and isolation. If you are living on campus, I know at one point freshman students were living alone, and upperclassmen were given the opportunity to have one close friend stay with them just to ensure that social distancing aspect. So imagine just coming to school, imagining what type of college life you're supposed to have, and then recognizing that or acknowledging that I'm kind of confined to my room and I'm not able to do as much. This isn't what college is supposed to be like. So let's see here. What is stress? I'm going to define 3 things for you: stress, anxiety, depression. I'll give you some of those symptoms, and then we can move forward with, I don't want to just focus on the negative, right? Everything that all the students are actually experiencing. I want to make sure that I give you some tips and tools on how to manage the stress, manage the anxiety, take care of things whenever you're feeling depressed. So stress is just a feeling of emotional or physical tension Let me tell you this, stress in some levels are actually good because stress is a motivator. If you've ever felt mildly stressed, it's reminded you, hey, I do have an that's due on Friday and I haven't started yet. So feeling that stress is actually a good thing because it can help you get things done. It's when stress has overloaded your system and you're unable to manage it properly when it becomes a problem. So whenever it's extreme, it can become problematic. Some of these symptoms that I'm going to tell you guys about as far as stress and anxiety and depression, they're going to all sound very similar because they all tend to affect us in very similar ways, but there are some things that make stress and anxiety and depression different. With stress, as you will see also with anxiety, you will feel like a chest tightness, kind of feel like you can't breathe, muscle tensions, aches and pains. I'm not sure if you've ever gone through a full day of school or work or whatever and just been like, wow, why are my shoulders so tight or why are my arms so sore? I haven't worked out. It's because stressed, we tend to tense our muscles as if we're preparing for a threat or a fight. And actually releasing those muscles after the end of the day does provide some aches and pains. If we are stressed, we do tend to have a little bit more headaches than normal. If we're stressed, we're having difficulty sleeping. I mean, once again, if you have an assignment that you know you probably should have started a long time ago, and that sucker is due on Friday, you're going to have problems sleeping. You're going to go to bed, and then you're going to wake up going, oh my goodness, I should have already started this. Let me go ahead and get to work now. When we're stressed, we're also very restless, and it's hard for us to relax because we have so many things going on. We're overwhelmed, and we haven't necessarily managed that stress properly so that we can relax. Those heart palpitations, that's another symptom that's going to also match with some anxiety symptoms, but you will start to kind of have those, that restless a heart rate, okay? And the last one is digestive issues. If we're stressed out, it's kind of hard to eat. Sometimes you might eat and the food might come back up, or you just really might feel like you're not very hungry at all, and so your stomach's kind of upset. I'll move on to anxiety. Anxiety is an unhelpful thinking pattern. It's based on a threat. It's when we're when we're faced with uncertainty, as we are right now, as far as the pandemic, and negativity. So anxiety can occur on its own, but it can be situational, which is similar to what we're going through right now. It can be a response to stress, or it can trigger stress. So it's very closely related with stress, which is why some of these symptoms are going to sound very similar. When it does happen because of stress, it can start to create, I guess, what we'll call, or what some people have experienced as, panic attacks. So look at some of these symptoms. I'm going to give you some emotional symptoms. Emotional is just having that sense of dread, just plain out fear, okay, fearful of a situation, feeling tense or jumpy, things drop or fall behind you, you feel like you're hopping at every little sound. Once again, being restless, but also being irritable. Uncertainty definitely makes us not feel as comfortable as we would like to. So feeling irritable does happen with anxiety. Anticipating the worst. We catastrophize everything. When something happens and we're feeling anxious and fearful, we only go straight for doom and gloom. We only think the worst. We never think that somewhere the situation can be a lot better than what we're thinking. We're always watching for signs of danger. There's a reason why a lot of students or people in general who've experienced some sort of trauma, they're always in survival mode. If they've been in a situation where something really bad happened and they were unaware, then they'll sit down in restaurants and make sure that their back is to the wall so that they can see everything in front of them, so that they can always assess and be able to respond to a threat or fear. Those physical symptoms of anxiety is that chest pain again. Whenever we get anxious, and I find I get anxious quite a bit too whenever I have to go in person and speak, until I get a little bit more comfortable, but my heart will race. I'll start to feel like a little dizzy, maybe some tingling. There's that sweat and hot flashes. Some people, whenever they're anxious, they have a physical symptom of nausea, just inability to catch your breath. Dry mouth, just feeling like you can't get enough water. Those are some of the physical symptoms as well, as far as anxiety is concerned. And lastly, with depression, I want to make sure that people understand that depression is more than just being sad. We're all sad at many points in our lives. We're probably sad right now, but it's when the depression, when the sadness is ongoing, it's long term, and there are some parts of your life that are severely affected because of the way that you're feeling. Once again, it doesn't have a single cause. It can be triggered by a life crisis. It can be triggered by this pandemic. It can be triggered by an illness or prolonged grief, but it can also happen pretty quickly as well. Some of the depression symptoms are a lot different from anxiety, right? So it's losing interest in what you used to like to do, just not even wanting to do it anymore. Change in appetite or weight. And I want to make sure I emphasize that the change in appetite or weight is unintentional. A lot of us diet or say that we're trying to, muscle up or whatever, but this is just recognizing one day, wow, I am down 10, 15, 20 pounds, or I've gained 30 pounds in 2 months. What's going on? Sleep disturbances, just not being able to sleep well or having an irregular sleeping pattern. With our circadian rhythms, we're supposed to be sleeping at night, but there are some people that when they're depressed, they're up all night and they sleep maybe a spattering of hours here or there. They're not getting a solid sleep. Feeling agitated or just feeling slowed down like you're walking through mud. Fatigue, just that physical energy or motivation to do anything. And when I was mentioning before about depression being different from sadness, I was saying that when we are sad, sure, we do feel down. We might not want to do, maybe I don't want to go out or go to dinner right now. But depression more so is having trouble just getting out of bed, doing hygiene, brushing your teeth, taking a shower, eating some food, just pretty much turning over and going to sleep and pretty much just sleeping the day or night away. Depression symptoms also include feelings of low self-worth and guilt, difficulty concentrating or making decisions at all. And the last one is really important because it's those uncontrollable, prolonged, or excessive crying. If you are experiencing that symptom, it is primarily supported by some of the other things because you have lost interest in or pleasure in doing certain things. You're not sleeping well. You do feel fatigued. You feel like you're at the end of your rope. So I wanted to make sure that I explained those symptoms so that now we can start talking about ways to improve our mental health while this pandemic is going on. And one of those, and it's really big, is called cognitive reframing. And what that means is you can take a situation that might be threatening to you, maybe causing that anxiety, causing that depression, causing that stress. That threat is something that you cannot control. You can't do anything about. But if you reframe it, if you change your perspective and look at this experience or whatever experience as something less than a threat, more of an obstacle, then that's something that you can confront, do battle with, and overcome. So reframing changes you from being a victim of circumstances, right? From saying, oh my God, all of these things are happening to me and there's absolutely nothing I can do, to an agent of control, which means, let me look at this situation. There's so much of it that I can't control. I can't do anything about, but there are some things that I can do. Let me identify those. So when we change the way we view a situation, then it can change also our responses that go along with it. So it's almost like looking at a picture and then maybe moving that frame a little bit. Now you notice, let's say if you step into your room and you hold your hands like a frame, you might see just your bed and the headboard. But if you shift your hands a little bit, now you might see those clothes that are in that basket over there that need to be washed, or the dust or whatever. Either way, when you change and move that frame, you recognize that there are so many other things that are a part of that picture, and you can respond differently now. So how to practice reframing? It's very simple, and I love to say that I make things sound a lot easier than they actually are, but this is something very easy, and we're going to go through just about maybe 3 or 4 examples of reframing so that you can get into the habit of doing it for yourself. First, you have to ask yourself some questions. Is there any other way, right, to look at this situation other than the way that I'm viewing it right now? What are some other possible reasons that this could have happened? Those are questions that you ask yourself before you shut the door and say, this thing is going on. There's nothing I can do. Oh, woe is me. I'm going to be stressed. I'm going to be anxious. I'm going to be depressed. No, that's not what we're going to do. We're going to ask ourselves, what's another way that I can look at this? How can I turn this away from something that I cannot control at all to something where I can finagle, I can work some things differently and make it at least beneficial for me. The next one is to validate your emotions. You're not wrong. If you're feeling whatever it is that you're feeling because of the pandemic, because of grief, because of things not necessarily going the way that you would have liked, that's okay. I can guarantee you, and I'm going to make this a normal thing, normalizing this for everybody, we're all feeling that way right now. So don't beat yourself up for possibly feeling a lot more stressed than you have been, or a lot more depressed or isolated. Those emotions, those feelings that you have are validated. They're real. But connected to the situation as well. When we look at a situation, and we're going to practice this in a second, you've got to ask yourself, okay, I've changed my perspective now, looking at this differently. Let me find what else is true about this instead of focusing on what I can't manage. And lastly, reframing it. You're going to take that original thought and you're going to include a few facts. So I'm going to show you what that looks like. If we reframe COVID in action, and this is a statement that I've heard from quite a few people, so I mashed up as much of it as I could to give you an idea. Because of COVID-19, I've had to practice social distancing. I have online classes. I can't go to the gym. I can't go out to dinner or do any of the things that give me pleasure. I'll go crazy if I'm stuck at home with my parents or in this house or with these kids with nothing to do. We have all felt that way from last March until now. But if we reframe it, if you think about it and viewing it from a different lens, it sounds more like this. Because of COVID-19, the number of people being exposed to the virus is increasing through social contact. That's a fact. That's something that we know. It's all on the news. CDC, Dr. Fauci, everybody said that. I have an opportunity to help reduce the outbreak and keep me and my family safe. Okay, that's part of the reframing. You've taken a fact that you know is completely and totally true, but changing your perspective now, saying, I can't do anything, life is ruined, I'm just stuck here, I'm isolated or alone, is more so saying, because of this situation, me having to maybe stay at home a little bit more often, wash my hands far more than I used to, not hug or touch people or wear a mask now, is helping me to keep myself safe and also those people that I have around me. Hope y'all see how reframing can work. The other part of that is I'll reduce exposure through social distancing and ensure that my family and I stay positive. Each day we'll practice these measures. We are contributing to the defeat of the outbreak. So that's just one way that we can use reframing, by making sure we include the facts, but we change our perspective so that it's not so stressful, depressing, or anxious for us. Okay, so there's more reframing examples I have here. I can't attend school in person. If you think about it, what are you not doing? And I don't know about y'all, but we're working remotely as well. And while I miss going into the office, I'm also recognizing I don't have to get up at 5 o'clock in the morning anymore. I don't have to take 2 hours to drive in. It takes me an hour to get to work. I don't have to worry about getting dressed up and do all of that. So I'm like, whew, man, and it's also saving some gas money. So if I think about it that way, me not having to go to work in person isn't so bad. It's not so stressful for me. It doesn't make me as sad. It doesn't make me so anxious. Another one is simple. I'm stuck at home. The other one is I'm safe at home. My parents are a lot older, and we had to tell my brother and my nephew, y'all got to stop keep coming in and out. Y'all are going to other people's homes. Y'all aren't wearing masks. And y'all are coming home to these two people that never go anywhere. So if they get sick, it's because you're bringing that to them. Well, I mean, saying it that way, they're like, oh, shoot, let me do what I can. So now they're more cautious as well because they want to make sure that their actions are supportive of where they're living. So it was all about reframing that. And I had to change it from, I'm not saying you can't go and see your friends or do any of the things that you want to do. We're being discouraged from doing all of that right now. However, if you are going to do those things, this is what you have to keep in mind. Make sure that you're keeping your elderly parents or yourself safe as well. So it helped them to view it from a different perspective and change the way that they did things as well. The last one is there's so much uncertainty right now. And this is where I'm really going into as far as speaking with you today. When we say that there's so much uncertainty, with uncertainty, it does almost kind of tie your hands and make you feel like you have absolutely no control. We can't control the pandemic, right? We can't control how Sylvester Turner or Abbott or Biden or whatever they decide for the nation to do during this time, but there are certain things that we can do. So while you can't control the situation, you can control your response and your behavior, right? So I hope that you guys have been following the UCC. I'm over Outreach. If you haven't, please follow us on Instagram at TSU_UCC because, a lot of the things that I'll be speaking with you about today, we already have on our Instagram page. So when I say doing breath work, we've been talking about mindfulness and we've been teaching meditation and we've been teaching deep breathing. Those things are very important as far as responding to stress, responding to anxiety. Those things actually help physiologically reduce your body's response to feeling those anxious feelings or the way that you respond to threats. Making sure that you call your friends. Just because you can't connect with everybody the way that you used to doesn't mean that you can't still keep in touch with them. Make sure that you get enough sleep and proper nutrition. Everybody's been at home, once again, eating really good, having some very good drinks, but sitting down, not doing anything at all. So when you focus on what you can do versus what you can't, then it improves your overall perspective as well. And just making sure you still engage in those activities that you love, all of those things will help during this time. So this is something that I really want to talk to you guys about. One of the major factors contributing to stress, contributing to anxiety, is the amount of control we perceive that we have over circumstances that happen. So that's called locus of control, and I'm going to explain that to you because it's very important. So once again, our perception determines our level of stress. If you know what type of locus of control that you have, and all locus means is just switch L for F, it's focus. It's where you perceive your control is in your life. That will determine your level of stress. So internal locus of control people feel like, and I have this quote here, if it is to be, it's up to me. People with a strong internal locus of control or focus of control feel like their skills, their efforts determine whether or not they succeed, okay? I'm not saying that there aren't outside forces out there going on, but internal locus of control people feel like I'm going to do everything that I can do. I'm going to do my best, and whether I make it or not depends on me and what it is that I do, okay? You feel like you have choices in life, so you're more likely to feel more confident about your actions and your choices in your life and the direction that it's going. And when you feel happier, guess what? You don't feel so stressed. And if you're happy, what? That's the opposite of sad. Sadness definitely supports depression, okay? External locus of control, that's the people that say, man, you're just lucky. You know, the fate says hands the cards that you were dealt, or it's just your destiny to be this way. But this is the thing. When you think that external forces are completely and totally controlling your life, then you're also saying, well, I don't have anything that I can do. And that's bad. Because when we feel like there's absolutely nothing that we can do that will help us succeed in life, then we won't, because we won't even look for the opportunity or those options that can make our situations better. So when we feel like we're at the mercy of these external forces, then it does leave us feeling powerless. We feel more anxious, depressed, and stressed, which are those three main mental health concerns that I brought up to you guys today. So this is my thing. It's called What's in Your Hand. I like focusing on what's in my hand because it's what I can actually control, and it's more of a mental thing. Whenever things happen, I ask myself, is this in my hand or not? Because if it's in my hand, that means that I can do something about it. Will it make things 100% right? No, but I'm going to make sure that I do what I can, so at the end of the day, I'm at least satisfied with the way that I responded to a particular situation. So I hope for you guys to start thinking about things whenever things happen. What's in my hand? What's in your hand is what you can actually control versus what you can't. What's not in your hand? These are those external forces, right? We can't control other people. I don't care how hard you try. As far as babies, we'll go ahead and say babies are one, but by the time they turn about 6 months old, if you put some beets or some whatever it is that they don't like in their mouth, they're going to spit it out. So just imagine if from 6 months old till, I don't know, we get old and gray, you can only truly control yourself. We can other people, we can manipulate them, which isn't always a good thing, but we cannot control other people. There is nothing we can do. And I put that one first because that's really, really important. The second one is the past. We ruminate so often on past mistakes. Things are that some we said that we can't go back and change. There's so much that we worry or think about from the past when we have to remember it. We can't change it. What we're supposed to do with the past is two things. We're supposed to learn from it and we're supposed to move on from it. Whenever we're thinking about the past, guess what we're not doing? We're not being actionable. We're not moving. We're not doing anything but keeping these thoughts about things that we cannot control swirling around in our heads. Some other simple things. Can't control the weather. Y'all know we're in Texas. We experience 4 seasons in one day. It just happens. We can't do anything about it, but what we can do is we can prepare, right? We can't control the government. We can't control what TSU or any of these other schools are going to do as far as the way that they're going to deliver instruction. We can't, what's not in our hand is our future. And it's not that you can't do what you're going to do to make sure that you succeed, but you also have to remember that there are those external forces that do exert their force on us, and that can not necessarily make your future not come true, but can have some sort of hand in how you get there or how you respond. I hope that makes sense. Other simple things, the economy and your genetics. And I like to bring up genetics because some people go, oh, I'm completely and totally in control of my health. Yeah, you are. If you're eating right and all of those things are great. But if you have genetic disposition for high blood pressure or for cancer or whatever, there's absolutely nothing you can do about that. So that's why I put genetics there. So since we focused on what's not in our hand, right, we're going to focus on what's in your hand. Your thoughts. You are in control of your thoughts. When a situation happens, we automatically have a thought. From that thought, automatically have a feeling. And from that feeling, we act, okay? So it's according to what type of thought that you have. If something happens and you go straight to the darkness with it, catastrophizing, just thinking of the worst case scenario, then guess what? You're going to start feeling sad, you're going to feel down, and then what's your behavior? You're going to give up. You're not going to call that person. You're not going to turn in the assignment because I don't know why I should. I mean, the professor already said whatever he said. But if you think about it, you are in control of those thoughts. And if we're talking about changing our perspective, Tigers, we're saying that instead of viewing this situation, this experience, this particular way, let me expand my way of thinking and figure out what are some other ways that I can think about this. What are some things that I can do to make things better? So what's in your hand is definitely your thoughts and definitely your responses. If you're approached by someone or some situation and they've, I don't know, riled you up, or you feel like, well, let me take that back. They haven't riled you up. You've responded in a way that means that you're mad or you're upset. It's up for you to decide if you snap and go off on that person or if you walk away. One thing that people love to do and love to say is, you made me mad. He pushed my buttons and made me do this. No one can make you do anything. Shy of you being in a hostage situation or you're being trafficked, you are in control of you. Okay? Happen, it is up to you to decide how you respond. And if you say that someone made you mad or he made me do it, then at that point you're saying that someone else was in control of you. That means that you allowed someone else to control you. I want to make sure I throw that out there. What's also in your hand is focusing on yourself. Many times, especially if we have some people that are people pleasers, we focus more so on the needs of others. But when we focus on making sure that everybody else is good, the one person that we're not focusing on is ourselves, right? And so during these times, we keep talking about uncertainty. This has been a time where people have really said, you know what, I am by myself. Instead of complaining about it, let me use that to my, let me learn a new language. Let me read some more books. Let me get back in tune with me and what's important to me so that when this all goes away, I'll be a better person, okay? What else is in your hand is self-care. the ability to not just, take a bubble bath and burn some candles or whatever, but for you to really focus on nurturing your own needs, whether if it is, having that alone time, taking that walk, thinking, praying, whatever those things are that benefit you or make you feel better. That's what's in your hand. Okay, your routine. As I mentioned at the very beginning of the presentation, it has been difficult for students to maintain some sort of schedule because everything has been up in the air. But we've been going through this for the past year now. And whether we like it or not, we can say, you know what, I can get up and still work out, whether it's walking around my neighborhood or down the Tiger Walk or whatever. I do have classes at this time. I can take a break here. I can connect with my friends in person or FaceTime or whatever way. You do have the opportunity to create a routine and stick with it. There's a bunch of research that indicates that having a daily routine, having that consistency, helps to reduce stress and anxiety because you already know what you're going to do with your day. And that when there is a disruption, you decide how that, or if it should, disrupt that routine that you already have. Eating and exercise, very important. Your boundaries. If you are following us on Instagram, I just posted that today. Keep your distance from people who do not respect your boundaries, and we can discuss that at a later time as well. That's what's in your hand. The amount of access that you give people to you, or that you get from others. Those boundaries are very important. Those are things that are in your hand that you can control. And lastly, voting and activism. A lot of times, and I remember for me growing up, it was always said, oh, you're just one vote. Well, man, didn't we see how some voting and some activism over this past really benefited, I guess, anybody if they chose to vote for who we have as president now or they didn't. Voting really does count. 70-something million people voted for one and however many voted for the other. So voting, activism, that's something that's in your control, that you do have something or power to use. So when you find yourself saying, and this is definitely focusing on reframing and exercising your internal locus of control. When you find yourself saying, I can't, you tell yourself that I'm in control. I know what's in my hand, right? There's nothing I can do. Instead of saying that, say, let's look at the alternatives. What's another way to view this situation? When you say I have no options, it might be you have them, you just don't like them at all. So, and be honest with yourself and say that. When you say I have no options, really, well, I just don't like the ones I have. That's better than shutting the situation down completely by saying you don't have any control over it whatsoever. Once again, he makes me so angry. You're in control of your feelings and behaviors. If you're dealing with someone and they constantly put you in a place where you feel angry, then it's up to you to exercise those boundaries where you don't provide them with as much access. You decline invitations, you hang up the phone, you walk away so that you can be in control of you. Whenever we say I must, should, ought, have to be, all of those are very hard, finite words. Instead of saying must, think about it. I prefer, I would like. Those are easier because they give you so many more options than things just have to happen this way, because if they don't, I don't know what I will do. This one I really like a lot. That's just the way that I am. No, we are in constant states of change and movement. And so instead of being pigeonholing yourself and saying, that's just the way that I am, I'm not going to change, I've been this way since whenever, you're cutting down on so many opportunities. Instead say, I mean, I might be this way, but I can choose a different approach. I can be open-minded enough to try something different. They won't allow that. A lot of times as students, we know how it is with our professors and deans, and we feel like, oh, I don't even know. They're not going to say anything at all, or they're not going to do anything about this situation. You never know until you advocate for yourself. And so at that point, I'm not saying that just because you advocate for yourself, that the deans and the professors are just going to do everything the way you want it. No, it's about, this was what was in my power to do. I used my voice. I made these concerns or these issues known. And I can feel like at the end of the day that I've done the best that I could with the situation. When we say I have to, once again, those are those hard words. You don't have to do anything, but you can also choose to do things a different way than you feel like you have to. And instead of if only, just say I will. So if only is one of those limiting terms as well. So I hope these different ways of of viewing things or saying things is showing you how you can reframe and reduce stress and anxiety during these times. So some of these stress management tips, prepare. For the Texas freeze, they had been telling us for a week or two that things were going to be really bad. And there are quite a few people that didn't really heed that advice. And so during that week, for whatever reason, they just weren't as prepared as they probably could have been. I'm using that example because I've heard a lot of people say, you know what, I heard it. I just didn't think it was really that big deal. And we were stuck. We didn't have bottled water and we didn't have all this stuff. And then you have people on the other side, I don't know why y'all didn't know, because they told us, right? So study, explore various options, develop a plan, and sometimes it means, you guys, developing a backup plan. Just not, once again, having this one way that things can be done, but have multiple ways. Changing your habits is so important. If the way that you're doing things right now isn't resulting in you feeling less stress, then some things might need to change. So improving your study habits. Making sure that you get enough sleep, sleep high, staying on the phone until just before you go to bed and you wonder why you don't sleep good. It's because your brain is still pretty much activated and running on this blue screen that you've been looking at forever, and then you're tired. Either way, if you can practice better sleep hygiene, get some more sleep, manage your time effectively, shut down these distractions whenever you're trying to do coursework or whenever you need to focus on the task at hand, makes a world of difference. So focus on what it is that you can change, which could be your habits. Lastly, refrain. Stop catastrophizing. Whenever we catastrophize, we're going, once again, straight to the worst case scenario. What I'm going to say is if we focus always on the negative, then we're not giving ourselves a possibility to think about the positive, because what ends up happening is never the worst. It's never the best. It's usually somewhere in between. And for many of us, that's okay. I like that this too shall pass is a good way to remember that the things that we're experiencing right now will not last always, right? There are seasons, things change, times change. And so just recognizing, yes, we're enduring this right now. It's not going to always be that way. So let me make sure that I, remind myself of that and keep myself positive with everything that's going on. Lastly, I have our information on here. We are working remotely. We're doing telehealth and we're using Microsoft Teams, which is excellent because for so many of our students, especially at an HBCU, using mental health services is like a big, huge stigma. There's a taboo. Nobody wants anybody to know that they're talking to the counseling center or counselor. The good thing is, because we're doing telehealth, you are in charge. You are in control. So I'm going to use that word since I've been using that today. You are in control of your environment and your confidentiality. You can call us. You can email me. I'll make sure that I put my email address in the chat to make an appointment. Nobody will know unless you tell them. We are duty bound by our licenses that we cannot break confidentiality unless you give us written permission on a form that we have that says that we can talk to a particular person about you at any time. So I want to make sure I put that out there.